Okay, so we're back in our code editor, and I'm located in Lecture 31 folder, which is located in Full Stack-Course 5 Examples folder. And this is again our shopping list directive app that we looked at before. In the previous versions, if cookies were detected as part of the shopping list, we displayed an error message underneath the shopping list. What we used to display that message was ngIf. So if one of the shopping list items included cookies in it, ngIf would detect that being true and then would display that particular div with a warning. In this version, we're going to do something similar, except we're going to use DOM manipulation to achieve that. And then we'll upgrade it to jQuery and use some animation effects on that as well. So the first thing I need to do is declare my link function where I'm going to be able to call these DOM manipulation methods. So I'll put a comma here and I'll say link, and I'll say the name of the link function, which will be something like shopping list directive link. Let's save that. And let's go right here and actually define this shopping list directive link. I actually have some of the code pre-made a little bit, so I'll go ahead and copy and paste it here to save some time for us. And here's our shopping list directive link, which has a scope, an element, attributes, and a controller. And again, I'm omitting one parameter here at the very end that we're not looking at right now. Okay, so far we have our shopping list directive link, and we're logging to the console the scope, the controller, and the element. Okay, so let's go to the browser, and let's go ahead and open up the console and see what it's telling us. Okay, so the link scope is, and we can open it up, and then we could see that the link scope is exactly the same thing as what we've injected into our shopping list directive controller. In fact, you could see that the list here is that shopping list directive controller. If we open it up, we'll see all of our cookies and list, items, my title, unremove, and so on. Okay, so that's the link scope. The controller instance, you can see again the shopping list directive controller as we thought it was. And the element is, if we take a look here closely, is the shopping list. So the shopping list is the parent element that this element parameter represents. Let's go ahead and minimize that, and let's go back to the code editor. So what we want to do here is actually set up a watch on our shopping list directive controllers function, and we have a controller function for the shopping list directive, which is called cookies in list. So we really want to have this as the property that we are watching. So let's go ahead and copy that, and let's set up a watch here. We'll say scope $watch, and we'll give it the property name, which in this case is our list.cookiesInList. Well, since this is a function, we need to indicate that as such. So that's the property where we're watching on our scope. And then we're going to give it a function that is going to take a new value and an old value as its parameters. Let's put a semicolon right here. And we're going to even actually log the old value. And this is a Boolean function, so it's going to say either false or true. And we could go ahead and do it again. Say new value. Okay, so now we're watching our list.cookiesInList. So when cookiesInList changes its value, either from false to true or from true to false, this function right here will fire. So what we want to do here is we want to actually display a warning, a cookie warning. So we're going to say if new value is equal to true, then what we want to do is we want to display cookie warning. And we're going to write that function in a minute. Else, we want to remove the cookie warning, since if it came false, it means that the cookies have disappeared. We maybe remove them from the list. Remove cookie warning. Okay, so those are the two functions that we need. Now all we need to do is define the function display cookie warning. And we need to define a function called remove cookie warning. Okay, so now we've defined these two functions. Let's take a look at our template. And in our template here, we want to set up a placeholder for our error message. So we'll create a regular div, and we'll give it a class error as before, and we'll give it the message. Oh, the horror, cookies detected. Okay, that sounds like a good message. Another thing is we need to make sure that at the beginning, this div right here is invisible, because we certainly don't want this message to show up to start with. So if we go to our styles.css, we see the error class, and this is exactly what we declared our div with. So what we could do is simply add one more property called display, and we'll give it a none. So at the beginning, it's not going to display that div to the user. So it will be just an empty space. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go back to our browser just to make sure. We could say cookie, 3 bags, and nothing really should happen so far, right? Because we did not activate showing this cookie warning at the bottom. Okay, so let's go back to the code editor. Let's go to our app.js, and let's write this display cookie warning. Okay, so first of all, we need access to our element object here, and I already realized that I made a minor mistake. If you take a look as to where these curly braces end, I actually defined my cookie warning, display cookie warning, and remove cookie warning outside of my link function. I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and grab these, cut them out, and put them right back inside, so I'll have access to the element that I'm going to be using in order to manipulate the DOM. So let's go to the display cookie warning now that we're now inside of our shopping list directive function. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to use just regular using Angular JQLite. Actually, if we save that for now, go back to the browser and we'll just search for Angular JS JQLite. It should take us to the angular.element documentation. Let's take a look at that. And you'll see here, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that Angular JQLite provides the following jQuery methods. You can see a whole bunch of methods here, not that many, but a nice amount. And one of them is a find function. If you take a look here, there will be a find function right here, and it says limited to lookups by tag name. So we can't just use find and use regular selector API. We're limited to only looking things up by tag name. If we were to use jQuery, we would not be limited to that. But for now, let's just use tag names to look things up. Let's go back to our code editor and let's create a var warning element, and we'll say element.find, and we'll say we want to find the div. Now, what is going on here? Why am I saying find this div? If we go back to the shopping list.html, you'll see that this is the only div in this shopping list.html template. And here's point number one about element.find. When you're using the element.find, it is only going to look starting at that element in the DOM and below, which means it's only going to look right here. This is actually great news because if you have a huge HTML page, it's not going to have to look through the entire DOM. It's only going to have to try to find that div in this small little snippet of HTML. So this is a very performant way of actually looking up elements inside of your HTML templates. And at this point, once we have this warning element, all we really need to do is call its CSS class. And if you take a look at our list of classes, this is one of them. We could have a CSS class. By the way, if you click on that, it will take you straight to jQuery API documentation, and you'll see you could provide the property name and the value as part of its method signature. So let's go back to the code editor and let's say CSS, and we need to say display, and this time we're going to show it, so we'll say block. We'll go ahead and end it with a semicolon. Okay, so for the remove cookie, since things are going to evaluate to false at some point, again, we're going to say using Angular JQLite. And what we want to do is, again, we want to find that same element as we did before. We'll just copy and paste it right here. And we'll actually copy and paste this as well. And instead of block, we need to turn it back to none. Not done, none. We'll save that. Let's go back to our browser. Let's go to the actual application. We don't need this anymore. So let's go ahead and say chips. We'll do 5 bags of chips. We'll add that. You see there's no message, but the second we say cookies, 5 bags of cookies, all the horror, cookies detected. And if we remove the chips, for example, let's just remove the cookies right away. If we remove the cookies, you'll see that the cookie warning disappears. Okay, so that was fun, but let's go ahead and try to use jQuery instead. Before we do, let's go ahead and log what does this warning element look like on the console. Let's go ahead back to the console and let's go ahead and add something that will trigger it, cookie, 3 bags, whatever. And let's open up the console and let's take a look at what we have here. We have this U, and let's take a look at its prototype. And you can see its prototype. Look at all those methods that we spoke about and we saw in the documentation. So you see the find here, you see the CSS we used, so a whole bunch of methods. Pretty good. Let's go ahead and go back to the code editor, go to our index.html. I already pre-downloaded the jQuery 3.1.0.min.js, and I have it here just commented out. Let's go ahead and uncomment that. So now what we have is we have jQuery mentioned before our angular.min.js. If we save that and go back to our browser, we've done nothing else, just mentioned jQuery before we imported the actual Angular.js. Let's just refresh it just in case. And let's go ahead and say cookie, 3 bags. Let's add that. Let's take a look as to what we have now. Let's open that up. And let's go look at its proto again. What is its prototype? Let's see, can we scroll it up a little bit more? Look at that. Do you see how many more methods all of a sudden showed up on that same element? We have a whole bunch of methods. And some of them, look at that, says fade in, fade out. And I'm pretty sure there's a slide on, slide down, and slide up, which I can't see them at the moment, but I know they're there because they're part of jQuery. And then all the way down probably, right? By S, slide down and slide up. There they are. So let's go back to the code editor. And now that we have jQuery installed, let's go to app.js and use jQuery to do that. We'll actually just leave this alone. Maybe we'll just comment that out and comment this out as well. And let's use jQuery to get the same thing done. So let's say if jQuery included before Angular. Okay, first of all, the warning element, as we had it before, can now be found by a much more precise selector because the find of jQuery supports much more than just looking for tags. So we could say div, we could say div.error. So I want to find a div with a class called error, which is exactly what our div is. And now, instead of simply showing a display block, what we're going to do is we're going to say warning element dot slide down. I want a slide down effect, and I want 900 milliseconds. I want it to take 900 milliseconds to slide down. Okay, that's all we're going to do to display the cookie warning. And to display or remove the cookie warning, we're going to do something similar. Again, we're going to find that same div.error, except we're going to say slide up to remove it from the view. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go back to our browser. We could close that. And we could say chips, 2 bags or 3 bags of chips, and nothing's going on. And then we could say cookies. Let's say 5 bags of cookies. Why not? And when we do that, you see Ohoro cookies detected kind of slid down and gave us that effect. Now, if we remove the cookies, take a look what's going to happen to this Ohoro cookies detected. It's going to slide back up. Remove, bam, it's gone. So now we are able to manipulate the DOM and actually affect it and even use third-party libraries like jQuery and obviously any other library we want directly in the DOM, and it's all compartmentalized inside of our directive. So the code is not spread all over the place. It's very nicely segmented only to the part that deals directly with DOM manipulation. Okay, so let's summarize. DOM manipulation is usually done inside of the link function. You declare the link function directly on the DDO, the directive definition object. The link function does not support injection itself, but if you wanted to use injected components, services, or other controllers, you can inject them directly into the directive declaration. The scope parameter, that is the first parameter of the link function, is the exact $ scope in the directives controller. It doesn't have the $ to remind us that it is not injected, it is simply passed into the link function. The second parameter is the element object, and that represents the element of the directive. It actually represents the top level element of the directive. That object is either the JQLite object, which is a watered down version of jQuery that Angular provides out of the box, or it is the jQuery object itself, if jQuery is included before the Angular.js is included in your main HTML page.